Muammar Gaddafi's story begins in the vast, unforgiving deserts of Libya, a land of stark beauty and harsh realities. Born in 1942, young Muammar's world was one of nomadic tents and ancient Bedouin traditions. His early years were spent in the embrace of a culture that valued resilience and adaptability, traits that would shape his future. His family, though not wealthy, recognized the importance of education. They believed that knowledge was a path to a better life, even in the midst of their modest desert existence. Driven by a thirst for knowledge, Gaddafi left his humble beginnings to pursue his education. He traveled long distances, often on foot, to attend school, demonstrating a determination that set him apart from his peers. He excelled in his studies, eventually enrolling at the Royal Military Academy in Benghazi. This institution was a gateway to a new world, offering him opportunities that were previously unimaginable. The academy exposed Gaddafi to the burgeoning Pan-Arabism movement sweeping the Middle East. This ideology, which called for the unification of Arab countries, resonated deeply with him. Figures like Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, a staunch advocate of Arab unity, became Gaddafi's idols. Nasser's vision of a united Arab world inspired Gaddafi to dream of a similar future for Libya. Gaddafi's time at the academy was not merely about academic pursuits. He formed a secret revolutionary group bound by a shared ambition to overthrow the monarchy and establish a new Libya. These clandestine meetings were the seeds of a revolution that would change the course of Libyan history. The year 1969 marked a turning point in Libya's history. King Idris I, viewed by Gaddafi and his cadre of young officers as a symbol of Western imperialism, became the target of their revolutionary ambitions. The coup itself was swift and bloodless. While King Idris was abroad, Gaddafi's forces seized key government buildings and military installations across Tripoli. On September 1, 1969, a 27-year-old Muammar Gaddafi announced the overthrow of the monarchy, proclaiming the birth of the Libyan Arab Republic. Gaddafi, now styling himself as brotherly leader, wasted no time in implementing his vision for a new Libya. He abolished the monarchy, purged the government, and nationalized key industries, most notably oil. Central to Gaddafi's ideology was the Green Book, a manifesto that he believed would guide Libya into a new era of governance and social structure. This three-part treatise outlined his political philosophy, which he saw as a unique blend of socialism, Arab nationalism, and Islamic principles. The Green Book was not just a political document, it was a blueprint for a new society. Gaddafi envisioned a Jamahiriya, or a state ruled by the masses, where traditional government institutions would be replaced by direct democracy. This vision was revolutionary, aiming to empower ordinary citizens by involving them directly in the decision-making process through local committees and councils. The Green Book advocated for a system where citizens would participate in local committees, making decisions that would affect their daily lives. Gaddafi believed that this form of direct democracy would eliminate the need for traditional institutions of government, which he saw as inherently oppressive and corrupt. He sought to dismantle these institutions, replacing them with a new system that he believed would be more just and equitable. However, this utopian vision often clashed with the harsh realities of Gaddafi's rule. While he promoted himself as a champion of the people, his government exhibited increasingly authoritarian tendencies. Political opposition was ruthlessly suppressed, and dissent was met with swift and brutal retribution. Despite these contradictions, the Green Book had a profound impact on Libyan society. It led to significant improvements in literacy, healthcare, and housing, as Gaddafi invested heavily in social programs. Yet, these achievements came at a high cost. The government's authoritarian nature stifled political freedom and human rights, creating a society where fear and repression were commonplace. Political prisoners filled the jails, and any form of protest was quickly and violently quashed. The Green Book, while visionary in its ideals, ultimately became a tool for Gaddafi to maintain his grip on power. It was taught in schools and became a central part of the national curriculum, shaping the minds of young Libyans. While it did lead to advancements in education, healthcare, and housing, these benefits were overshadowed by the lack of political freedom. In the end, Gaddafi's vision for a new society was a complex and often contradictory legacy, marked by both progress and oppression. Muammar Gaddafi was never far from controversy on the international stage. Known for his flamboyant style and unpredictable behavior, Gaddafi often used his platform to challenge the status quo and provoke reactions from world leaders. His staunch anti-Western rhetoric and support for revolutionary movements made him a pariah in the eyes of many Western governments. Gaddafi's speeches were filled with fiery language, condemning Western imperialism and advocating for a new world order that favored the oppressed nations. One significant event that cemented Gaddafi's pariah status was the 1988 bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland. The attack resulted in the tragic loss of 270 lives and brought international condemnation upon Libya. Libya's alleged involvement led to years of international sanctions and diplomatic isolation. The United Nations imposed strict measures, severely impacting the Libyan economy and its international relations. Despite his confrontational approach to the West, Gaddafi was not averse to pragmatic alliances. He often sought to balance his anti-Western stance with strategic partnerships that could benefit Libya. He courted relationships with African nations, pouring Libyan oil wealth into development projects. Gaddafi envisioned himself as a leader of the African continent, promoting unity and economic growth through various initiatives. Gaddafi's foreign policy was a complex tapestry of defiance and pragmatism. He navigated the intricate web of international politics with a mix of bold defiance and calculated diplomacy. He remained a vocal critic of the United States and its allies, even as he sought to mend relations in the later years of his rule. Gaddafi's legacy on the world stage is one of contradiction, marked by both his relentless opposition to Western powers and his efforts to forge new alliances. The year 2011 witnessed a wave of popular uprisings dubbed the Arab Spring, sweeping across the Middle East and North Africa. Libya, despite its oil wealth, was not immune to the winds of change. Years of Gaddafi's authoritarian rule had created a simmering discontent. Inspired by the uprisings in Tunisia and Egypt, Libyan protesters took to the streets, demanding an end to Gaddafi's 42-year reign. What began as peaceful protests quickly escalated into a full-blown armed rebellion. Gaddafi's security forces responded with brutal force, firing upon unarmed demonstrators. The regime's crackdown only added fuel to the fire, pushing more Libyans to join the rebels. The stage was set for a bloody and protracted conflict that would determine the fate of Libya and its longtime ruler. The Libyan uprising quickly transformed into an international crisis. As Gaddafi's forces threatened to overrun Benghazi, the international community grappled with the question of intervention. The United Nations Security Council passed a resolution authorizing a no-fly zone over Libya. This resolution paved the way for NATO's military intervention. NATO's involvement, primarily led by France, the UK, and the US, proved to be a turning point in the war. Gaddafi's military was gradually pushed back, losing control of key cities. The NATO intervention, while credited with preventing a humanitarian catastrophe, remains a subject of intense debate. By August 2011, the tide of the war had turned decisively against Muammar Gaddafi. Rebel forces, backed by NATO airstrikes, had captured Tripoli, effectively ending Gaddafi's reign. The once all-powerful dictator was now a fugitive in his own country. Gaddafi refused to surrender, retreating to his hometown of Sirte. Loyalist forces entrenched in Sirte put up fierce resistance. On October 20, 2011, after weeks of heavy fighting, rebel forces captured Sirte. Gaddafi, hiding in a drainage pipe, was discovered and apprehended by rebel fighters. Video footage of Gaddafi's capture showed the former dictator bloodied and disoriented. The circumstances surrounding Gaddafi's death remain shrouded in controversy. Regardless of the exact circumstances, Gaddafi's death marked the end of an era in Libya. The fall of Muammar Gaddafi failed to usher in the era of peace and prosperity that many had hoped for. The country, ravaged by months of conflict, descended into chaos and lawlessness. The absence of a clear plan for the post-Gaddafi era proved to be a fatal flaw. Libya became a breeding ground for rival militias, each vying for power. The power vacuum allowed extremist groups to gain a foothold in Libya. The country became a haven for smugglers and human traffickers. The international community struggled to formulate a coherent strategy to address Libya's myriad challenges. Muammar Gaddafi's legacy remains a complex and contested one. He was a man of stark contradictions, capable of both brutality and benevolence. His 42-year reign left an indelible mark on Libya. Gaddafi's supporters point to his achievements in improving living standards. His nationalization policies increased Libya's oil wealth, transforming it from an impoverished nation. However, Gaddafi's accomplishments cannot erase the dark legacy of his dictatorship. More than a decade after his death, Libya continues to grapple with the consequences of Gaddafi's rule. Gaddafi's shadow still looms large over Libya, a reminder of both the promise and peril of his tumultuous reign.